Well, and the one cool stat that comes out of Kansas to me, Adam, is the 45 car has now won 3 of the last 4 races at Kansas with 3 different drivers.
And
crazy.
This is the first time, well, the other race in there, won by Denny Hamlin, the boss man, which is also a neat piece to that puzzle. The one thing I would say, though, that's most interesting to me when you look at the 2311 element is this is the first time they have had a driver win a playoff race when they were running for the championship. You know, Bubba won there last year. He won at Talladega a couple of years ago, but neither time was he a playoff driver. Reddick wins and advances. That's the first time. I just go back to everything that Denny Hamlin put into bringing Tyler Reddick over.
Right.
And how kind of controversial that was. And you're like, man, Tyler Reddick. You know, I'm learning a lot about Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski as owners, and they know how to find talent. You look at Denny going and getting Tyler, the way that Brad has spoke so highly of Chris Buescher and what he's been able to do, and the long list of drivers that are racing at a high level now that at some point were under that BKR umbrella when Brad had the truck team. Those are 2 champions, or I guess Denny isn't a champion, but everything but, that have done it at the highest level for so long, first ballot Hall of Famers, that are showing they're pretty good when it comes to having an eye for talent and being an owner as well.
Well, I'll throw another one on that list. How about Kyle Busch and all he's done?
No question, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing when you look at these guys, and we talked about it on the show last week a little bit, Davey. When you look at it, you know, it wasn't 5 years ago we're sitting there going, we're the future owners in the sport. And now you look at Justin Marks, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, all the youth is coming in. And the nice thing to me is, and I've said many times over the years, I wish if I'd had a nickel for every time I sat on a press conference over the years and listened to somebody come in and go, I'm going to come in and run this like a real business. Because those guys never made it. But you've got guys involved now who are not former racers, but are racers. And they understand the normal, quote unquote, business model does not work. They understand how to make the model work under a racing umbrella.
For lack of a better term, they just get it, you know? And I think the 3 of us understand that, but it's hard for somebody that is not in it every single day, is not breathing it 24/7, 365, has not had experiences, has not watched it growing up, gone to the racetrack, and now has skin in the game from a financial perspective. It's one thing to have money behind it. It's another thing to have an idea behind it. But if you don't get it, like if you don't have the passion for it, Justin Marks talks about it all the time. Even Matt Collig, who didn't race growing up, but he now really gets it as a younger owner. That goes so incredibly far. Now, Brad, Denny, Kyle, Dale Jr. on the Xfinity Series side, you know, their accolades speak for themselves. But the guys that haven't had as rich of a driving career as those guys and haven't been in the sport since they were basically born, like a lot of those guys, if they don't get it, it's kind of hard to replace that. And I think the fact that these guys are so young and they have been around the sport for so long, relatively speaking, they get that a lot more than some guys and gals that we've seen come into the sport in an ownership perspective in the past. And especially for me, somebody who's in their mid-20s has seen a lot of people come in and flame out. I know you guys have probably seen umpteen times more people do it. So it's really refreshing to see a younger perspective kind of come through, and to know that if and when the time comes when some of the guys want to pass the torch to some younger owners in the sport, that their teams and their organizations and the sport in general is going to be in not just good hands, but really capable and great hands. I think it's a good thing.
And no offense to any of these that have come in on the ownership side, but if I'm honest, I didn't believe everything they were selling when they first had the press conference and announced the team and said their expectation was to win. Because quite honestly, we just haven't seen that in the history of the sport, as Davey talks about. But, I go back to the Daytona 500, 2311, starting out for the first time. They do a sit-down with Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan, who's never really been accustomed to losing at anything, says, we want to win. And I just kind of laughed because I thought, here's a guy that's maybe the greatest ever in basketball. He just doesn't quite understand how hard it is. And later that year, they won with Bubba at Talladega. They won with 2 different drivers last year, and now they're advancing through the playoffs. What Justin Marks has done at Trackhouse is just remarkable, winning multiple races last year, putting both drivers in the playoffs, and now Ross Chastain is on the doorstep of not only making the championship for last year, but advancing this year. what these teams are doing is unheard of, and we've got to celebrate that because the foundation for the future is being laid, and it's quite bright.